Hello and welcome back to TNA Sports. We want to welcome you back after our prediction video where we did the East and West of the SEC. This is going to be our prediction show for week 1 of college football. We are not going to be doing any predictions for week 0, but we are going to start in week 1. Give you a little bit of background. So we started doing predictions about 4 or 5 years ago. We did them for a couple of years, took a couple of years off, and now we're getting back into them. I can tell you the last year we did them and actually recorded everything and tracked what we did. I know we ended the year, I ended up at just over 52% correct, and A ended up with around 57 to 58% correct. And then we had a third member who ended up with almost 65% correct for the year. And that's 10 games a week over every week of the year. So, too bad we don't have that person picking. And with that being said, I'd like to welcome our guest picker for week 1. The intelligent, the beautiful, the lovely Barbie.
Hey guys.
Yay! Welcome in. So, in case you didn't figure it out, Barbie here is the one that was in the middle 60s in her percentage correct when we were tracking last time. So, we had to bring her back in. First of all, I can't go out a loser, so I want to beat her on my predictions this year. And that's really it. I just want to beat her. So we'll see. We'll see how this year goes. Maybe she'll give me a couple weeks before she starts making me look bad. So we pick up to about 10 games a week that we're going to do each week throughout the football season. Some weeks we will do the full 10. Some weeks, if we don't feel like there's 10 good games to predict, we might only do 6 or 7 or something like that. Because we're only going to do bigger name programs. We're not going to do a lot of the FCS or anything like that. It's going to be mainly Power 5 schools. The ones that's going to, have the biggest amount of fans and stuff involved. And the ones we feel the strongest about, and typically we know the most about the teams. So that's kind of how we do our predictions. I'm going to kick it over to A and let him go over some stuff. I know he's going to talk about some things he does as far as the predictions go, and as well this being a lot different year than a lot have been here recently. There's been some stuff, as most of you guys know, if you're a college football fan, in the last few years we've had NIL and the transfer portal that's become major parts of college football. A's going to be covering how those have affected everything. So go ahead and take it away.
Yes, I'm going to start out by talking about, of course, something the NCAA has screwed up. It's going to be the NIL. Every time the NCAA gets involved, something goes haywire. And believe me, the players deserve compensation they have for years. But right now, it is just so wide open. It's like NFL free agency when it comes to recruiting, transfer portal, and all that. So now the NCAA's got to come back and make legislation for every team so it will be fair across the board. But anyway, that's all I got to say about the NIL part. The transfer portal, players deserve the right, if they don't think they're going to get enough playing time, that they can go somewhere else. But also at the same time, I wish some players would hang in there, because you never know when somebody's going to get injured or something happen and you get to play where you first went to. What happens is the rich get richer is all you're doing. You're giving the better programs more talent to choose from. Instead of high school and JUCO, you're giving the transfer portal, giving the better coaches are going to go get players wherever they got to. And that's all I got to say about the transfer portal. And before I kick it back to T, I know you will hear us kidding around about coin flipping on our predicting, but believe me, we do research. We've sat down and do a lot of research. There's really no coin flipping. We put a lot of thought into these, but at the same time, it's fun. So out there, you enjoy our show and pick with us. We welcome anybody. And now, T, just get us started.
All right. So one thing I'm going to bring up too, we don't typically do a whole lot of predicting in week one. Week one, the college football season is one of the hardest things in the world to predict. And especially now with the transfer portal, you have to know where these players are going, where they came from. I mean, you just have to really do your research now. I mean, you have to know all of that as far as who's going where, not just recruiting rankings anymore. I mean, the transfer portal is easily right up there with recruiting now. I mean, it really takes, it doesn't take recruiting away. It doesn't take recruiting away, but it can make it more difficult. So let's get started actually picking. We're going to start here with West Virginia versus Pitt. Okay. Pitt is a 7.5 point favorite going into the game. One thing about this game, and I love picking these kind of games, is rivalry games. Although they will make you pull your hair out if you're a gambler. Because crazy stuff can happen in these games. But we tried to go through here and do as good a job as we could, with the facts off of how we think this is going to go. And this one is the Backyard Brawl. And a lot of you might not know this. They haven't played this game in 11 years. They haven't played this since 2011. And with it being as big a rivalry as it is, I mean, this is one of the older rivalries in college football. These two teams are itching to play each other. So I'm expecting a very, very physical game when these two match up. In this one, you kind of got the battle of former USC quarterbacks. So JT Daniels, who was at Georgia last year, he's now at West Virginia. And Keaton Slovis is now at Pitt. As most of you know, Kenny Pickett was a first-round quarterback in last year's draft. And not only did they lose Kenny Pickett, they also lost Jordan Addison, the Biletnikoff Award winner. He transferred to USC, so he's gone. And they have a new offensive coordinator to tie it all up. Definitely some interesting facts there. Another key thing we looked at in this matchup, JT Daniels is going to be reuniting with his OC from USC, Graham Harrell. Does that give him a little bit of comfort that maybe Keaton Slovis doesn't have in his first year? With all that being said, where do I lean on the game? Well, Pitt's the favorite, 7.5, so over a touchdown. The line on the game is coming from Vegas Insiders. That's where we pulled all of our info from when it comes, basically anything when it comes to over-unders, win totals, money lines, anything we pull from VegasInsider.com. That's where these numbers came from. I pulled them on 8/25. So as of 8/25, these numbers were accurate. Which way do I lean? Pitt the favorite, Pitt at home. I'm going with West Virginia. I've got West Virginia plus the 7.5. I feel like JT Daniels is going to have a very good year with West Virginia this year. He hasn't been healthy. He's definitely not been healthy. That's been his biggest issue since he left USC, or even at USC. That's been one of his biggest issues, has been his health. If he can stay healthy, he's been a really good quarterback. But he hasn't. This year, though, I think JT has a big year. This opening game, like I said, it's going to be a huge lot of emotion playing this game again. I don't know. I feel like West Virginia's going to come out plus the 7.5. I don't know if they're going to win the game. I can see them winning the game. Now, I know that is the most political answer, but I'm not predicting it. I'm predicting West Virginia to cover, Pitt to win the game. Let's begin to making me look bad. So, Barbie, what you got on West Virginia and Pitt?
I'm actually going to go with Pitt to cover at home. I think the inexperience in the secondary leads to West Virginia dropping their season opener, is what I'm looking at on that.
And you're going, just so I'm sure, you're going against my pick, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, just making sure. All right, A, what you got on that?
She has obviously seen the same thing I have. Slovis will tear this secondary up.
Absolutely.
And not only is Pitt at home, and I love Panthers, but that's not the reason I'm picking them. It's Slovis. Now, if I was picking furniture burners, I would go with West Virginia. But that's not what I'm picking this week. I'm picking a football game, Pitt to cover the 7.5 and win easily.
All right. That's okay. We're not always going to agree. That's okay. It would be boring if we all had the same picks, but only one can be right.
That's me.
All right, game number 2. The Penn State Nittany Lions versus the Purdue Boilermakers. This game has a spread. Penn State is a 3.5 point favorite. This game's at Purdue. Let's see. If we look at the all-time record, Penn State has a huge advantage. They have 15-3-1 advantage. And the last time they played, Penn State won big, 35-7. But the main person I want to talk about is Sean Clifford. Okay, Penn State's quarterback, as most of you know. I'm a Sean Clifford fan. I really am. I'm a fan of Sean Clifford. Guy has a ton of experience, but throughout his career, he's dealt with a ton of health issues. He's pretty much been JT Daniels of the North. You know, he's missed a lot of games over the previous, I think, 5 years, maybe 6 years at this, maybe 12 years at this point. He's been there a long time. He's completed very few seasons, but whenever he's been healthy, he has put up good numbers. Looking at returning production, Penn State, they got 5 defenders, starters returning. They've got 7 offensive starters returning. Now, they did lose their best receiver, and probably one of their only kind of game breakers. This year, they will lose him, but they do have 2 starters coming back, who are good players, and they have an excellent tight end. I love me some tight end play, which is, in the Big Ten, you normally get some good tight end play. On defense, they brought in a guy named Chop Robinson. How cool a name is Chop Robinson? Especially for a guy that plays defensive end, okay? That's just a great name. Probably not a good name if you play on the offensive line. And as A said, I'm gonna give him credit for the joke, at least, but I'm gonna tell it. Why is he not at Florida State? I mean, come on. Come on. The NIL deal, it writes itself. Now, another guy I want to talk about, I really see this guy having a big season. Nicholas Singleton. He's a freshman running back. Every service had him way up there. I mean, the dude, you look at him on film, this guy looks like he can tote the mail. I cannot wait to see him play. They also got 3 wide receivers coming in through either the transfer portal or as a pure freshman. And all 3 of them they're excited about. So if they're excited about them, I'm excited about them. I'm a believer in Penn State this year. I really, really am. I think they're going to have a turnaround year. And I think they're going to start out on a good note. I have Penn State covering the 3.5, and possibly pretty easy from what I see. But anyway, Lou, you going next.
Okay, I'm going to take Purdue As far as quarterback play overall, they're pretty even.
You went against me again.
Again. They have a good number of returning starters on defense. They got 8. The special teams for Penn State doesn't look to be pretty strong this year, but I think Purdue's going to pull it out. They're going to control the tempo and the game with their passing attack.
Now, I will give you credit on that. Penn State is not going to have a very good special teams unit this year, I don't think. I mean, they had to replace their do-everything kicker, Jordan Stout. They got talent, supposedly, there, and they got numbers. They got 3 punters, and they got 3 kickers. But there's almost no experience with any of them. So, yeah, I will give you credit. That was a good take. All right, what you got, A?
Well, I'll tell you something. It's all in a nickname. When I first heard of the Boilermakers years ago, I thought of my entertainment background, and that's what I thought their nickname was for. Turns out I was wrong. It actually has to do with a train. But anyway, I'm getting way off tracks here, but I am going with Mount Nittany here, and if they were at home, it would be by a whole lot more than this. I like their experienced quarterback. He's mobile, good leader. As many injuries as he's fought through, I mean, you've got to root for the guy. And they only have 5 guys returning on defense, and Purdue has 8. That looks like an advantage, but I mean, Purdue was not good on defense last year. I just think Penn State has more talent overall, and maybe James Franklin a little bit of edge in the coaching. So I'm going to go Mount Nittany here to cover, not necessarily hammer them, but they will cover the 3.5.
And not that we're knocking Purdue, and of course, obviously we're not, considering Barbie picked them. Me and A are not knocking them. I do believe that Purdue does have a great quarterback, that Aiden O'Connell. Looking back at last year, 9 starts, threw for at least 370 yards in 8 of 9 games, and threw for over 500 twice. That's impressive. That over 500 is impressive if you're throwing against the air. But Purdue's not going to have enough defense. I mean, I hate it. They're not going to have enough defense to hang with them. On to the next. All right, NC State Wolfpack playing at East Carolina. NC State is an 11-point favorite according to our odds. I feel like this line is so off that I didn't think I needed too much information to describe why I'm picking what I'm picking. I think NC State is going to compete for their division in the ACC and possibly be a dark horse playoff contender. I do not expect East Carolina to be anything close to that. I know that East Carolina does have a good offense, but NC State is going to return 10 players on defense and 7 on offense, including an elite quarterback, Devin Leary. So, just with that, you give me NC State minus the 11. All right, Bobby, what you got?
I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to go with the NC State Wolfpack.
Oh, my goodness.
I think they're going to play really tough on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to stand out.
Their defense is going to be
Yes, the
good.
linebacking corps is probably going to be among the best in the nation. And then the East Carolina, you just question about their pass protection against the wave of the Wolfpack linebackers.
It's going to be hard for them to stand up
I
to
agree.
NC State's defense, I think. They're going to have a hard time moving the ball. All right, A, what you got on that one?
Well, I was expecting to be in the lonesome here. No, not really. But not only will the Wolfpack, are they in the house, they're going to be going to the house a bunch. With them 10 starters returning on defense, East Carolina is not going to be able to move the ball consistently. And I rate Devin Leary the 3rd best quarterback in the nation behind C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. He is a dark horse, sleeper, Heisman Trophy candidate. So obviously, with that being said, yes, they will easily cover the 11. And take out the Pirates, who, by the way, should have Mike Leach. Wouldn't he be a perfect Pirate coach? But anyway, that's for another day.
Very good point. Very good point. On the football and Mike Leach. All right, let's see here. All right, next game we are going to do North Carolina versus App State. Okay, so first off, looking at North Carolina, they're going to be starting an inexperienced quarterback. Regardless of who it is, by the way, they're going to be starting an inexperienced quarterback. From everything I've seen, from the predictions, people say it looks like Drake May is going to win the competition. Drake May, who has attempted 10 career passes, so not a lot of experience there. But they got maybe the best receiver in the country. If he's not the best, he's one of about the top 3 best. Josh Downs. That dude is a player. He's coming off a plus 1,300 yard season. People are expecting him to go very early, possibly the first receiver taken in the draft. He is a matchup nightmare. On defense, North Carolina brought in Gene Chizik, which I think is an upgrade. I like Gene Chizik as a defensive coordinator. Not to say much about his head coaching, but for defensive coordinator, I like Chizik for sure. I think that's a big upgrade. Not only that, they bring back 7 starters on defense. So they have experience, and I think they're going to have a better system. To me, North Carolina big time underachieved last year. They had a 6-7 record. And does anybody remember where they were ranked at the start of next year with this? Last year, the 6-7 record before it started.
They was top 15?
Top 15 or top 10, depending upon the poll. That was the famous Mac Brown telling everybody, all the reporters, they must have been wrong for putting them up that high once they lost 3 or 4 games. So definitely not a strong year last year. I do think North Carolina is going to have a better season this year. I think they're going to have a bounce back year. With all that being said, all my North Carolina talk, I'm going with App State in this one, plus the 1.5, which pretty much means I'm predicting App State to win the game. I actually am predicting them to win the game. If I win the bet, they almost have to win the game or lose by 1. I do like Appalachian State. The more I research this team, the more I liked them. I'm not going to talk totally about them because I don't want to be talked 90% of the time. So, yeah, I've got App State plus the 1.5. So, on to you, Bobs.
Now, this one was a tough one. I went back and forth a bunch on it because it was tough looking on both sides of the game. And I'm still kind of uneasy about my choice, but I'm going to go with North Carolina. I think bringing Gene Chizik in as the defensive coordinator coming in, I think that's a real big upgrade. They also returned 7 starters on defense. I can see them coming out with a win.
And yet, that's another one we disagreed on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, A, what you got?
Oh, I tell you, this one it's a toughie, but of course that 1.5 would tell you that this should be a very close game. It's very interesting about North Carolina. You've got 2 coaches on that staff with national titles. Who would have thought that for North Carolina football? I'm going with Appalachian State. I love teams that can run the football. I love teams that's got the quarterback advantage. It seems like he has been playing for 20 years already. Appalachian State has the offense, and I believe they will come with enough defense to keep themselves in the game and find a way to win this game. I picked against the Mountaineers earlier, but this Mountaineers, I am picking Appalachian State to cover.
So I'm the only one picking North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Gotcha.
You're the only one with the love. Oh, and y'all get in the comments. Who's the best Mountaineers? Appalachian State or West Virginia? Okay, let's see. Next game. Cincinnati versus Arkansas. The Razorbacks are a 6.5-point favorite at home. This one to me is not as difficult. I don't have to research a ton of this one to know who I'm going to pick. If this had been last year, this line is about right. Maybe a little less than that. This year, I don't see it. I think Arkansas is going to easily cover the 6.5. Cincinnati lost their starting quarterback, their starting running back, two of the best corners in the entire country. Cincinnati does not recruit like the upper echelon, or even like Arkansas is starting to recruit. Cincinnati doesn't recruit that well. And what Arkansas has done in the transfer portal too. So yeah, last year that's about right, but not this year. Arkansas, I'm high on Arkansas this year. If you watched our prediction video, I've got them right there with A&M as being second in the SEC West. So Arkansas is going to be very good. If Arkansas was in a weak conference, Arkansas would be predicted to win 11 or 12 games. So I definitely have Arkansas covering the 6.5 pretty easily. So what you got, Bob?
I absolutely agree with you. I'm a big Sam Pittman fan. I have been for a while.
Me too. Me too.
He's done a really good job at that program the past couple of years. I think with the defense is returning 4 guys, and with the system that they have, they don't have to have a lot of talent and experience to be good.
That's true.
So I think Arkansas will end up winning it. They're just going to grind their way to the wind.
You think they'll just wear them out?
Wear them
out.
Yep,
I could easily. I'm sure that's what Sam Pittman would love to do.
Yes.
All right. So me and you actually agreed. Awesome. Let's see if Aaron agrees with us.
Well, in most sports, I like Cincinnati, but not in this case. I don't necessarily hate Bearcats football. It's just being kind of facetious there. But anyway, Arkansas is my type of team. I love blue-collar football, whether it's Mark Stoops at Kentucky, it's Sam Pittman at Arkansas. I'm an old-school guy. Let's run the ball, and let's do some tackling on defense, and then we'll see who the better man is. So in order to beat the man, you got to tackle the man. Let's go with Arkansas covering the 6.5.
All right, so all of us going with the Hogs. I think we're all high on Arkansas this year.
Living high on the hog.
High on the Hog. All right, let's see. Now then, moving on to what I'm sure is going to be a loved take from our brethren here in the Southeast. The next game we're going to look at, the Georgia Bulldogs versus the Oregon Ducks in a neutral site game in Atlanta, Georgia, that's only 3,000 miles from Oregon. Basically a home game for Georgia. Georgia's coming into this thing a 17.5-point favorite. Georgia coming off their first national title since 1980. They are coming off of having a generational defense as well. Let me go ahead and get started with what I'm sure is many people are going to say I'm an idiot. New head coach at Oregon. All right. So you have Dan Lanning coming in from Georgia. He was the DC there last year. So he's coming in, taking over Oregon. You know, obviously Mario Cristobal was there before. Before this year, it was Cristobal. He done pretty solid up there. Basically earned himself an invitation back to Coral Gables to coach at Miami. So he left, and they reached out and got Dan Lanning from Georgia. I'm interested, very, very interested to see this game. I am not super high on Georgia this year. Do I expect them to win most of their games? Yeah. But I don't think you're going to have the same team you had win the national title last year. Georgia has 3 starters returning on defense, okay? And I know it's not all about what you return, but what you have total. Georgia recruits at a high level as anybody, especially on defense. Georgia's going to have a good defense. Georgia's not going to have a generational defense this year, okay? This is going to be more like 2020's Georgia's defense, which was good, but it was nothing near last year. Not only that, another big key in this game, to me, you got Bo Nix transferring in from Auburn. Okay, he has experience playing against Georgia. I did not research how many times he has played against Georgia. It's either 2, 3, or 4. I can't remember. He's had some injuries, so I'm not sure how many times he's played him. I know it's been at least twice. And not only that, Bo is going to be reuniting with his former Auburn OC, Kenny Dillingham, at Oregon. And I think it's going to make Bo really comfortable with the play calls. Now, they have not said that Bo's going to be the starter. Okay, I know a bunch of people is probably out there going, well, they haven't even named Bo the starter. Everything I've looked at, including our lads, which they do a great job of depth charts. Honestly, if you guys ever want to see a depth chart and you want to see one that maybe hasn't been announced or something, our lads, OURLADS, not sponsored by them, but yeah, they do a great job. So that's where the depth charts are coming. They're projecting Bo as a starter, so I'm taking it too. I know, like I said, go ahead and get it out of the way. I got Oregon covered. Okay, I got them covering the 17.5. I don't think Georgia's going to score enough to get to an 18-point victory. Or first off, Oregon has a good defense. Oregon has I think, above average defense. Georgia's going to have a good offense. On the other side, Georgia's going to have a good defense. Oregon's going to have a good offense. That doesn't equal 17.5 points to me when you look at it both ways like that. I think Oregon not only will cover the 17.5, but they will almost beat Georgia. Almost. You thought I was going to pick them to beat Georgia. I know y'all did. No, I think Georgia barely squeaks it out and gets the victory, but nowhere near 17.5. Bobby, what you got?
Well, I'm actually going to agree with you. I think the Oregon Ducks are going to cover, and I think Georgia's going to come out with the win in the end, but I don't think it's going to be by 17.5. I think
I'm going to guarantee it's not going to be by 17.5.
Maybe by 3.
I'm talking about the half part.
Oh, yeah. Bo Nix transferring from Auburn. I didn't like him at Auburn, but I think he's come to a good place at Oregon. So I think he'll look really good on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think some of that may have not been Bo. I think it might have been his coaching.
Got you. And Oregon's returning their tight end, and Bo's able to run. So I think that's going to open up the passing game for them. That'll allow for the wide receivers to make some plays. But I still think Georgia's going to pull out in the end. I think the Ducks are going to cover. So.
Okay. You thinking like me, like super close, or you thinking
I think it's going to be
7 to 10?
No, I think it's going to be super close. I think it's going to come down to the wire.
Okay.
Is what I think it's going to come down to.
All right, so we agreed on that. Let's see if we go 3 for 3.
Well, this is the part that I am going to be doing every week, everybody. This is my triple D part of the show every week. It is the double-digit dog. The Oregon Ducks. Ain't it ironic I'm going against the Bulldogs for my first double-digit dog? But the Oregon Ducks will not only cover, I am not just going to get to the edge of the cliff. I'm going off the cliff.
Ooh, you're falling over.
I am going to pick Oregon to beat them straight up. When I did my SEC predictions, I had Georgia at 10-2. One of the two is Oregon. Oregon, with Bo Nix, they have an experienced quarterback against SEC competition. They have enough talent that with Georgia having only 3 starters returning on defense, they lost their top 2 halfbacks, their top 2 receivers. Everything in my world is pointing toward the Ducks. So take the Ducks not only to cover 17.5. Let's go off the cliff and go ahead and get the Ducks pulling the win.
Wow.
You got more guts than I got.
Yeah.
I
I think Kirby can
Couldn't
pull
pull
it
the
out in
trigger.
the end. Yeah, I just think Kirby can pull it out in the end. He's going to have something up his sleeve he's been working on.
I think at the end of the day, Georgia's just going to be just
Just a
little better. Just a little better. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. Also, this is another game that I think falls in the category of if this was played last year. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people when they maybe make the lines or when people start thinking about teams coming back. Your last thought is seeing Georgia beat Alabama by a couple of scores in a national championship game. Way less than a year ago. That's your last thoughts.
With a great defense.
Right. With a great defense.
That they lose people this year.
Right. That's why it's every year's different. You cannot look at the end of last year to determine. Yeah. And that's what makes predicting in week 1 so hard. Honestly, this week, I'm hoping to go 5-5. With what you have to work with in predicting week 1, honestly, I would never put my own money in week 1. Never. There's just too many things, too many variables, too many unknowns. That's why I can't do it. All right, let's see what we got next. Looks like we have the Utah Utes versus the Florida Gators. Okay, in this one, Utah's a 2.5-point favorite. It's going to be in the swamp. Looking at Utah, the offense is going to return 8 starters. They're spread out all across the offense, too. I mean, you have starters at every level returning. Line, receivers, backs, everything. But the Utah defense only returns 5 starters. Their secondary should be good because all but one returning starters in the secondary. I think they have a nose tackle and 4 guys out of the secondary. So they should be able to stop the pass. So one thing about Utah, and I hate to admit it because I don't like this guy, but Kyle Whittingham is a good coach. Utah, every year I watch them, and I have to give him credit because they're always well coached. They're always consistently good. And to me, that's what a good coach does, is make a team be consistently good. And Utah does not recruit like the upper echelon, but they bring in guys that are football players. They don't bring in a lot of 5-star and 4-star kind of guys. They bring in 2s and 3s that want to play for the Utes. Not only that, you got Florida with Billy Napier being in his first season. Whittingham, I forget how many seasons he's been there. It's a lot. It's in double digits, I know. Right?
Oh, yeah, because he beat Alabama years ago.
That's right after Saban got there.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's been
way up in double figures then. So, yeah, then you got Billy Napier in his first season at Florida. I'm pretty high on the Billy Napier hire in general. I think he's going to do pretty well. He's finally starting to recruit, it looks like. So as long as he keeps doing that, that's going to get him a long way. But unfortunately, with this being the opening game for Florida with a new head coach, you got Utah, who, spoiler alert, I think they're going to make the playoffs. With that being said, I'm picking Utah to cover the 2.5. They are going to kind of bully Florida a little bit. That maybe Florida's not used to being bullied by a non-SEC team. But I'm expecting both sides of the ball for Utah to be extremely good. I think Florida will get better as the year goes on. If this game took place later in the year with home field advantage, chances are I'll take Florida later in the year. With it being the opening game, though, I'm going to go with a more experienced team with a more experienced coaching staff. What you got, Bobby?
I'm actually going to go with you and go with Utah, covering Florida Gators. I don't know. Florida's returning 9 defensive starters, but they're going to have to rely on good rotation on the defensive front to hold it up against the Utes' offensive line. And going back to what you said about Kyle Winningham, he's been known to beat teams that have more talent than him. So I can see him pulling out this win.
Especially when he has time to prepare.
Yes.
You give Whittingham a while,
and he's had all off season.
Right, or all off season, he's very good.
To
very
come into
good.
the SEC and pull out a win. So.
I think, I totally agree with you. Let's see if we can all agree again.
Yes, we are definitely going to agree. In fact, Whittingham would never get beat if he played once a month. If he spread the 12 games over the whole year, he would be 12-0 because you give him time, he figures out a plan.
Yeah, I agree.
But week to week, sometimes he doesn't. But in this case, the Florida Gators, first year under Billy Napier, they're going to be good down the road because I think that was a very good hire, but just not right now. Dan Mullen did not lead this program in the best shape in the world. So I'm going to go the Utes are going to win this game, and it might get ugly toward the end, but they'll definitely cover the 2.5. That's not a good line, by the way.
Just one more quick note on the game, and this is something we all agreed on, that the Florida-Utah game will come down to how Richardson plays quarterback for Florida. If he takes the game upon himself and really plays, how he's capable, he's super talented, he can be a good quarterback. I do not see him being a first-rounder like some people have said. He has the raw talent. I just don't think the raw talent is going to get it done.
Not this year.
Not this year. Okay, so the next game we're looking at, Notre Dame versus Ohio State. I am looking forward to this game. To me, this is another matchup that's kind of like the last one. And as you have a first-year head coach, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, the difference is, he was bumped up from D.C. He wasn't brought in from a head coach from another team. So, but I know they're super high on Marcus Freeman. And I'm high on Marcus Freeman. I know he's done gangbusters recruiting so far. Which, if he continues to do that, he will build the team that he wants to build. He is doing great. Because as good as Brian Kelly did while he was at Notre Dame, he really didn't have any top 2 or 3 recruiting classes. That's one area I do think they can improve under Marcus Freeman, but at the same time, I don't think Marcus Freeman is as, and why would you expect him to be? He's not as good a head coach as Brian Kelly is at the moment. He just became a head coach. Brian Kelly has many years, has made the playoffs, made BCS title games. He's proven it, and I'm kind of a prove-it-to-me guy. Brian Kelly has earned my respect. I respect Brian Kelly as a head coach. With that being said, Ohio State, they're just freaking stacked. Man, Ohio State, especially the offense. You got C.J. Stroud, who is a front runner for the Heisman. You got a young, super talented back in Travion Henderson, and one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, with possibly the best wide receiver in the country. Notre Dame is not going to be able to slow them down. Notre Dame is not going to have a terrible defense. I just don't think they've got the horses to run with Ohio State. I think Ohio State, they're going to begin to get better with get the new DC in there. They brought in Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State to shore up that defense. And especially with the run, they really struggled with the run last year. And Jim Knowles did a fantastic job at Oklahoma State. So I'm expecting to see improvement there. I mean, Ohio State's ranked number 2 for a reason. And at home on top of it, I got Ohio State covering the 15.5 and probably covering it pretty easy. So what you got, Bobs?
Well, I don't like neither one of these teams, honestly.
No, I really don't either.
Neither one of these teams are my favorite, but I am going to take Ohio State. Again, they've got that good offense with front runner for the Heisman for the quarterback. Trayvon Henderson.
That's what I.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just one of those things. The Notre Dame offense have 8 starters returning, but three of their skill positions are gone.
All three of them: quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
All gone.
Basically, your defense may have to carry that offense. All of their defense are all upperclassmen, so I can see that happening. But I still think Ohio State's gonna.
That's true. That is true.
They
do have all upperclassmen on their defense.
Although against some better teams later on in the season, I think Ohio State's defense, how their defense performs, is going to determine the outcome of their season as well as being a playoff.
Oh yeah,
contender.
definitely. How good they get on defense will make all the difference in how they end this season.
But at Ohio State, I see Ohio State coming out and covering pretty much. So.
Good pick.
I wonder why.
What you got, eh?
Well, it just comes down to matchups, and there is so many mismatches in this game. Start with head coach Marcus Freeman. This is his second game. He had the bowl game, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
And people just don't give Ryan Day enough credit. I mean, you look at their recruiting every year; they're just about in the playoffs every year. And then the other mismatch is quarterback, inexperienced for Notre Dame, Heisman Trophy candidate for Ohio State. You look at the receivers, 3 good receivers to maybe 1 or 2 for Notre Dame. And you also, their best receiver could be a Heisman Trophy candidate. I mean, that's how good he is. It's Ohio State, I believe, will get better on defense this year. It still don't mean they'll be elite, but they will be better. Ohio State's ranked second for a reason. Let's go with the Buckeyes, and this is another one of them. It might get ugly mama games.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Just a little. Okay, so the next one we got. And y'all, this was the hardest game to pick.
Absolutely.
If I had it to do over again, I might have taken a different game on this. We went with Boise State versus Oregon State. Oregon State, 3.5 point favorite. The game's at Oregon State. Did not know a whole lot about these teams coming in. I knew that a couple years ago, Brian Harsin came from Boise State. I knew last year they wasn't great. They were 7-5. Which is actually the worst year they've had, turns out, since 1998. Interesting fact about Boise State, though, and I just found this to be an interesting fact. They are the only FBS program since the start of the BCS era that doesn't have a losing season. So, Boise, they have 7 offensive starters coming back, including their quarterback. Once again, starters returning for them at every level with a senior quarterback. And I like Bachmeier. Is that his name?
Brockmeier.
Brockmeier.
Is it Brockmeier? I knew it was something Meyer. I like him as a quarterback. I mean, he's not in my top 3 or 4, but I do like him as a quarterback. And hey, Boise State could have the best kicker in the whole Mountain West. They got that to hang their hat on. I almost flipped a coin on this one. Because looking at a lot of the stats and the breakdowns, these teams are a lot alike, which you can tell. It's a 3.5 point line for Oregon State. Oregon State's at home. You typically get around 3 to 3.5 points for being at home. So obviously on a neutral field, they think these teams are identical. With that being said, I took Boise plus the 3.5. The confidence level of like 0.003. What did you determine on that one, B?
Well, I'm going to have to go with Boise State as well, just because they got the 7 offensive starters coming back. They got 8 starters returning on defense. Defense wasn't good last year. It was good last year, but it just wasn't where it was supposed to be, where it needed to be.
Not really
much.
good.
Not really
just
good.
All right, pretty good.
Oregon State had their leading receiver. He's gone, with 2 other receivers transferring out. So, with Boise State having the best kicker in the Mountain West.
Told you.
And being
Hang your
ahead.
hat on it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Boise State.
You're going with Boise. Do they go by state anymore, or do they just go by Boise?
I think it's Boise State.
Yeah, I thought it was just Boise. Anybody from Boise? Y'all put in there what y'all go by. Let's see, we got what? Aaron on that one?
Mm-hmm.
Off the cuff here, I really liked old Boise potato chips years ago. Anyway, I had a lot of tiebreakers I had to go with here, and believe it or not a coin. With all the offensive starters they got and defensive starters they got back, they got a good quarterback, they got a good kicker, and Oregon State coming off the 9th best defense in the Pac-12 last year. I don't think they will improve on that too much. So this Broncos team is going to cover the 3.5, probably barely, but they'll get there.
Wow, that's shocking that we all three of us went with Boise on that one. That close. All right, what do we got? 2 left?
The last game.
Or is this the
the
last
last
game?
game.
Game 10. Okay. In what should be a fun matchup, the LSU Tigers versus the Florida State Seminoles. Line on this one is LSU is favored by 3.5. You've already heard some of my thoughts about Brian Kelly. You know I'm a Brian Kelly fan. As long as he's not teaching Southern accent classes, I think he's going to be all right coaching. Now, we could probably do that. We could probably teach some Southern accent classes.
I don't think that'd be a problem.
No. As far as coaching, he's going to be all right. Interesting stat. And I can't... this came from Aaron, right?
Mm-hmm. It did.
Interesting stat that I'm going to once again steal. The last 3 coaches at LSU have won national titles. There's not many other teams that's probably ever done that. Had 3 coaches in a row win national titles.
And Brian Kelly, he's a good head coach. So
he is a good head coach. That's what I keep saying.
if he can get the talent down there, I think he can bring LSU
and
back
so
up.
far he is. He is recruiting well, especially in Louisiana too. So a lot of people's like, he's not going to be a good fit down there. He doesn't speak Southern. And it's like, yeah, but he's a good coach.
Just because he don't talk like Waterboy.
I mean, I don't think Nick Saban sounds very Southern. And he doesn't have problems. You know, he's from where?
West Virginia.
West Virginia? Brian Kelly still hadn't announced his starting quarterback, but we really feel like it's going to be Daniels. And everything we've read, everything we read, they think it's going to be Daniels too. So I'm kind of assuming it's going to be Daniels. Obviously, Daniels is the transfer quarterback that came from Arizona State. He's got, I believe, 3 years of experience. So he came in and what's his face retired, didn't he? Miles Brennan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He retired from football. But yeah, we feel like it's going to be Daniels. We think he's going to be the starter.
Mainly because you got one starter returning back on that offensive line. So
yeah, you need somebody that can actually move back there as opposed to a sitting duck.
because him being a mobile quarterback,
right.
he'll be able to.
Exactly. He's going to be able to move. Some negatives. John Emery, the halfback for LSU, he's going to be suspended for the first 2 games. But they do have the Penn State transfer, Noah Cain, who I think is a pretty good running back. He's going to get the start. Also, I've heard from a lot of LSU supposed insiders that they've been real surprised with how good that Armani Goodwin has looked at running back. I don't think they were expecting as much as they got out of him right now. You know, maybe between Armani Goodwin and Noah Cain, they can hammer out a pretty decent running attack in week 1. They have one of the 3 best wide receivers, just like I was mentioning earlier. LSU's got one of them too, in Booty. Okay, the guy is a nightmare to try to cover. From what I've heard in fall camp, LSU doesn't have anybody that can cover him. So that tells you how good he is if LSU doesn't really have anybody that can cover him. I hate to admit it, a lot of teams probably not going to have anybody that can cover Keyshawn Booty. They don't have much experience on the offensive line, though. The one strength of the team, though, will be their defensive front. They got experience and they got talent all across that defensive front. They have a very good defensive front. And LSU they pretty much recruited well. I mean, Coach O everybody's pretty much recruited well there. So it's just a matter of just putting it all together and making it work. If they can do that, LSU, just like I said in my prediction video for the SEC West, they're going to be a toss-up, man. They could win. I could see them winning 10 games. I could see it going haywire and them winning 4. I don't think they're going to win 4. Watch my prediction video to see what I did predict. I think LSU is going to be a pretty decent ball team this year. And with that being said, I don't think Florida State's going to be very much improved overall. I'm not going to get into all the notes I have on Florida State, but I just don't think they're going to improve as much as they need to beat an LSU, because LSU is still uber talented, especially their starting 22. So I've got LSU covering the 3.5, and it could cover by a lot. But that's my pick there. What you got, Lou?
I'm going to go with LSU as well. Of course, it's supposed to be a neutral site, but they are playing it in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
So,
neutral site.
Basically, all the points that you picked on, I like Brian Kelly as a head coach. I feel like having Daniels there, that Noah Kane coming in from Penn State, having Booty. Basically, that defensive front's going to be the strength of the team, like you said, with experience and talent.
What about their secondary? What do you think about their secondary?
They got a ton of transfer in. They lost Eli Ricks to Alabama, and they've been dealing with suspensions. You got a corner who was supposed to be a main contributor who was suspended for the whole season. So,
yeah, just about a week ago, I think.
Yeah, so Florida State has 8 starters returning on offense. But just bottom line, Florida State's got to get more talent overall. They need more players more decent players at their skilled positions. They're supposed to have a deep receiver rotation because of the transfer portal. But
they have done well in the portal.
They don't have a go-to guy. 300 yards was...
Is that the most they got coming?
That's the most that they got with their best receivers. So.
Oh, Lord.
So that's why I'm picking LSU to win. And I think they'll win by more than the 3.5 as well. Yeah. Especially being in New Orleans as well. Because,
neutral side.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, what you got, eh?
I want to tell you something here now. Everybody needs to go get a dictionary to all these athletic directors that are picking neutral site games. Nebraska and Northwestern playing overseas, that's neutral. That's a pretty good neutral site there.
That's neutral.
Yep.
But if a team is playing in their home state, that's not neutral. If somebody played Alabama and Birmingham, would they be claiming that's a neutral site and fair? No, I don't think they would. But anyway, on this game, Florida State does not have enough talent to match up with LSU. And what's so weird about this game, before I started researching, I was actually, doing the but now I'm doing the no. LSU is going to cover that 3.5 pretty easily, in my opinion.
All right. So that would be 10 games that we picked. Like I said, I'm shooting for 50% this week. Now, I feel like once I get some actual game film of this year's team to watch, I feel like the predictions will actually be easier. We're having to go a lot off last year, a lot off what people think and what's experts have reported and all this, and you don't know what's really going on till you see the team. If you want to pick the same 10 games and go up against us, go for it. I'd put our picks up against anybody's. But until next time, thanks for joining us on TNA Sports. Once again, thank you to our special guest picker, Miss Barbie Lou.
You're welcome.
I really hope you don't beat me on those.
I always have fun beating your butt on this stuff.
So anyway, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.